Going to call the Fiscal Committee meeting to order. We have a short agenda today. I'm going to start with item number 2, approval of the minutes. I need a motion to approve Monday, November 7th, 2011 minutes.
So moved. Karski.
Second, Aguilar.
Moved by Karski, seconded by Aguilar. Any questions on the minutes? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item 3A, reports and updates. Discussion regarding city sales tax collection at W.H. Lyon Fairgrounds. This is really a status report from Jeffrey Schmidt of Planning, who acts as a liaison to the fairgrounds. Jeffrey, we know we've been working on this for a while. Where are we at?
Yeah, thank you for having us back today. I have the Minnehaha County Commissioner, who's the liaison, here also in attendance. The fair managers are here, and the chairman of the fair board is also here, so if you have additional questions. Where we're at is we're continuing to work through this process of specifically trying to determine what projects both entities have that we share, what the county is sharing with us, what we're sharing with the county. Once we get that list complete, it's going into a memorandum of understanding that we're going to sign between the two parties so that everybody understands that we're sharing things. After that point, then it really comes down to there's individual contracts on each one of those projects. If a department is using the fairgrounds, there'll be a contract between those two entities. We're just working out those details again, making sure everybody understands what's being used and how it's being used. That really helps the fairgrounds out because under their new management, they're making sure that everything's being done correctly and above board. Not all the old verbal agreements that the city used to have with citizens or the county used to have, now it's in writing. These are the agreements that we have. Specifically, what we're doing is we're meeting again tomorrow, I think in the afternoon, like 1 or 2 o'clock, to kind of finalize the memorandum of understanding. And what we'd recommend to this fiscal committee at this point is when we get these things done, we'll come back to you so it doesn't have to stay on the agenda each and every month. We'll just report back to you when we have something completed.
Questions for Jeffrey? Is everyone all right with taking this off the agenda and having Jeff bring it back when they have something to discuss? All right. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you for those of you from the fairgrounds who attended. And Commissioner Kelly, thank you for being here. We appreciate it.
Can I make one?
Sure, absolutely.
And you might want to check with your legal, but I was thinking that perhaps if you tabled it, it's sitting on the table then, but it's not, it doesn't go on your agenda and doesn't bother you guys every, something's on there and you're not going to act on it and say, why don't we get rid of this? And what my hope is that we can keep it alive for discussions like we're going to have tomorrow. But if you tabled it, then I think it only, I don't know what the charter says, but I imagine it takes 2/3 to get it off the table. And it would be simple to bring it back once we have something. I don't know. It's worth thinking about.
Our committee process is much more informal than that.
Well, I was thinking today it's awful formal compared to what it was 10 years, 15 years ago.
It's just a matter of Jeff contacting the chair of the fiscal committee and requesting it to be on the agenda, and we approve it, and it will be on the agenda.
That's fine.
At your convenience.
That's exactly what we're
Councilor Aguilar.
And we also have a list of ongoing issues for each of the committees that is updated every month by the staff. And so it will remain on there as pending.
But it won't be necessary for those of us outside the city to show up then, or?
We won't discuss it without your knowledge of it being on the agenda. I think Jeff Schmidt will probably be the one for sure to let you know, but Jamie, who's assigned to our committee, will have her get a hold of the county if it's going to be discussed. That way you don't have to make a trip here for a very short discussion.
Not that it's not fun to come back.
But we're glad to see you, Dick. Thanks for coming. All right. Item 3B is discussion regarding the fraud policy. We have from Internal Audit Rich Oaksall and City Attorney David Feifley. David, are you addressing this first?
If I may, Mr. Chairman.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Dave Feifley with the City Attorney's Office. Briefly, Rich Oaksall, Lead Internal Auditor, Bill O'Toole, Human Resources Director, and I have met on a few occasions to discuss the Council's directive as far as developing a fraud control policy. For the public's benefit, the fraud control policy would be to handle those calls that are received, reports of fraud or abuse and waste that are are received from the fraud hotline. And this is a number that's maintained by the city. It's advertised to employees and to citizens as well. It gets a few complaints a year that are investigated. And in terms of any internal controls to prevent future abuse are also investigated and implemented where necessary. In discussing this policy, we noted among the three of us that really we would prefer that any complaints or reports regarding elected officials would go to the Board of Ethics rather than be handled internally, say, by the Human Resources Director, the City Attorney, or the lead internal auditor. And we hope that the Council would agree with our unanimity, that's the word I was looking for, in terms of how it should be handled. And in doing that, we believe the Board of Ethics ordinances need to be revised to allow specifically those types of complaints or reports to be handled by the Board of Ethics. And there's also probably some other review that needs to be done with the Board of Ethics. And I believe we're trying to finalize that would be on the Public Services Committee agenda in January. And I believe with Councilor Anderson's leadership as chair of that committee that it will be extending an invitation also to the Board of Ethics to attend a joint meeting for their January meeting to discuss that. And I request that this committee hold off on the fraud control policy until such time as we're able to discuss how do we need to, by ordinance revisions, allow for reports from the fraud hotline to go to the Board of Ethics involving any of the 9 elected officials, and then do it all in unison in a global effort rather than have it come piecemeal.
Questions for Attorney Fifley? We are just sweeping stuff off our agenda today. All right. Appears to be a consensus to also table that until we hear back from the results of public services, and Attorney Fifley let us know when it needs to be on our agenda again. Item number 4, any open discussion? Councilor Jameson.
Last week we had our financial update from Tracy Turbeck, and Tracy had made a comment about if we had revisions to the information that we receive when he gives his report, those bar graphs and things, to have them come through the Fiscal Committee. And I would just like us to consider the idea of including in his report, and Tracy and I talked a little bit about it, but he encouraged me to discuss it with you first, and I want to do that. The idea of having the budget that the city has that we've adopted as far as the sales tax growth on that chart, one of the charts that shows us where 0 is, or perhaps like next year where 3% is, and what our projected growth should be, or what we're hoping for, and then what it actually is, and then what maybe that difference is in dollar amounts. So we can kind of see. For me, it's been a little frustrating sometimes to figure out, are we on track, or are we not on track? Are we ahead of the game or behind? And I think a graph like that might help some of us regular people understand it a little better about exactly where we are. And I was just looking for any thoughts on that, if you had any.
Questions or comments for Councilor Jameson? Councilor Karski.
Just for clarification, Greg, are you saying like take 2011 and we started, or 2010, we started budgeting in 2010 for 11 with a 3% growth? So in 2012, you want to see from back to 2010 where that was projected to be, or just, you know, within a 1-year history or 2-year? How far back are we looking?
Not so much backwards. It's just forward, if it's possible, and maybe just in 12 that we started with the 3% projected growth that the council adopted for the budget. How we are tracking on 12. If we want to go back, maybe that'd be great, but
okay.
I'm not worried about how we guessed it or missed it. It's more so going forward, how we're matching up with what we projected.
Okay, so because finance said 2012, in 2011, we're looking at a 3%, and we don't know if we're hitting that number or not, is what you're asking for.
Not yet,
okay.
and of course, all I'd like to see is on a chart of some sort of graph that showed, look, we're doing better than projected, or not as good, but we can probably go up above it and then below it, and we'll still be close to the 3%. Just something to help us make sure we're on the right path. For me, I just need that little help. Maybe there's other ways to determine that is easy, but I need a little graph. And as long as we're making revisions, and it should come through this, I'd recommend that we do something like that. And I was going to have it all drawn out, and I didn't. But Tracy kind of knows what I'm talking about, and I'd sure visit more with him if the council is okay with that.
Tracy, do you have any comments? Do you want to address it?
First of all, I'd just like to thank you for the input and the suggestions. I do welcome that, and if any of you have any suggestions at all as to how we might better communicate some of this financial data to you, we're always looking for more effective ways to communicate that in our monthly financial report, not only in the presentation that I present to you, but also in the written report as well. So I appreciate that. The suggestion that you've made, Councilor, I think is something we can very easily implement, and we can put that into effect in our 2012 and show that as kind of our target for the year. One of the things that I struggle with in trying to present the sales tax data is it depends on kind of what the question is that you're trying to answer. And in one case, one of the charts is really getting to your point, and that's how are we doing relative to our budget for this current year. Some of the other charts that we look at are more broader based and longer term economic trends. What is the local economy doing? And that sometimes is better reflected if you look at a longer period of time rather than just a single month or 2 months or 3 months throughout the fiscal year. So we can explore that suggestion as well as some others to try to maybe better communicate some of that. So I would welcome any suggestions or input, not only in the charts and graphs, but anything in that monthly financial report as well. If you've got things that you don't understand or that aren't in there that you'd like to see, maybe some things that are in there that you never look at and don't bother with, we can maybe spend our time on other things as well. So thank you.
Tracy, I see lots of head nodding as you were discussing it. So if I could task you and Councilor Jameson to work together on figuring out exactly how to make that more user-friendly. I think we're always ahead by doing that. There are a lot of non-accountants that would like to look at that and be able to understand it better. So anything you can do to make it more user-friendly in concept, I think that sounds like a great approach. So please forge forward.
Thank you.
Any other open discussion? If not, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Aguilar.
Second, Jameson.
Moved by Aguilar, seconded by Jameson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned at 5:49.